Technology always defeats us, when most needed. Yes, thank you for giving this opportunity to be with illustrious people from Bhutan, MPs, others. What I'll do is I'm supposed to be with you 11:45 to 1 p.m. So I'll use a little more than half the time on presentation. I had made it slightly differently, but in the way. And then I will give more time for interaction, questions and answers. I think that will probably find you more interesting. I'll put in this whole question of gender responsive governance or decentralization in the context of panchayat, which are the rural local councils. And they're just in their own voices, and then I'll move from there upwards. Okay, we'll start the film. It gives five dimensions as to what they have done, what they are wanting to do. It brings out a whole lot of issues, and I think we'll go from there. Okay.
The 73rd Constitutional Amendment mandated one-third political space to women in rural local governments in India. They seized this opportunity against all doubts and skepticism. Government and civil society groups took up the challenge to help these new entrants in their role performance. Mahila Chetana Manch is proud to be active in these initiatives. These have enabled women to be change agents in local governance. We see this reflected in their voices.
Women have disinterest in politics, and they don't want to contest election, or they are not interested. But then in 1992, in India, the Parliament passed the 73rd Constitutional Amendment, by which rural local governance was mandated to be inclusive, to be comprehensive, and to really touch the whole issue of governance. And simultaneously there was the 74th Amendment, which was for the urban local bodies. Now, when we talk about governance, governance is not only at the national level, particularly in a country like India, with such large number of villages, such large area, such diversity, such different context. Every state has its own difference and contextual realities. Even within the state, there are areas which define the context in which governance has to take place. It is in this context that we have to look at the whole issue of governance, and that also gender responsive governance.
What is the name of PPT?
PPT, yeah, this is the last one. Diplomacy, yeah. You just start with that, yeah. Just open it, then I'll. So, what I will do, I'll have a brief overview of how the 73rd Amendment came and how the whole issue of women in those bodies came. And then I'll discuss as to what are the issues in this when you talk in terms of gender responsive governance. So let's just open. Yeah. Now, I had titled the talk today about deepening democracy and inclusive governance and women's representation in panchayats in India. Now, if you see the beginning, just next, will anyone change? Yeah. In 1950, we had our Indian Constitution, which included adult franchise, universal suffrage, common electorate, federal structure, and along with that it included reservations for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, which are the weaker sections, for 10 years in the seats in parliament and state legislatures. That was the beginning of our Indian Republic. So if you notice that there itself we had identified the whole issue of weaker sections who required special attention to bring them to the parliament and to the state legislatures. Next. At that time, the question of women's reservation also came up, subsequently also, but women always felt that India had equality, and so women will come on their own, and therefore there was no need to provide any.
You can operate this.
Okay, it's okay if it's required. Yeah, so there was no need for any special dispensation. They'll come on their own. India has, if you have looked at the constitution, it is a very, should I say, liberal and very comprehensive constitution, and it provides fundamental rights, directive principles as to how the state should be functioning, how the state should be focusing on, and provides a whole the issue of fundamental rights and inclusive governance. Thereafter, the whole issue has been discussed as to what further needs to be done, and then in 1992, as I was mentioning just now, we had the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment, which had a lot of provisions which are very important. Now, first of all, it deepened democracy. You know, in this large size of India, we had parliament and we had state legislature. But then, in such a large area and such large number of villages and towns, the representation was to be much wider. So by this amendment in 1992, it deepened democracy. In fact, the elected representatives increased to a very large number, to 3.2 million, and one-third of them women. It had a 3-tier Panchayati Raj structure and 4 types of urban local bodies, and the municipal council, Nagar Panchayat, municipal corporation, and so on and so forth. So the democracy moved from, became a part of grassroots to national and state levels. Representation at the village level, town level, district level, and intermediate level, state level, and the panchayats. So a voter now elects a parliament, the state legislature, district panchayats, intermediate level panchayats, and village panchayats, or urban body, local body, depending upon where he is. In the village panchayats, in the village, there is a very important institution called Gram Sabha, which is like a deliberative body for the village, for the panchayat area. Every adult voter is a member of this automatically by law, and they discuss the various issues as to what they want and what they need, etc., and number of things have to be discussed and decided there accordingly. Accordingly the panchayat has to function and the governance has to take place. Now, at the national level we have parliament. At the state level, we have a state legislature, but in the panchayats and local bodies, there is not a legislature, there are executive and deliberative body, and so on and so forth, the general body. But there is not a legislature. Legislation is only at 2 other levels. Now, so this is what brought in deepening democracy and inclusive governance, because effort was made to include everyone. There was representation for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes and women. And I think this is where we'll move on to our main subject of, this is the context in which we will look at women. Now, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, as I said, are weaker sections. Then we had this whole issue of other backward classes who are socially and educationally backward, and it was felt that they also required special support for representation, and therefore there is a provision in the 73rd constitutional amendment that if a state wants, then besides the reservations for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and for women, they can also give this reservation for other backward classes, because these are what would be called the unrepresentative sections. Now, as I said in the beginning, no section no group, no population group is not entitled to come to parliament or state. Everyone is entitled to, he can be a voter, she can be a voter, and also can contest election. But it was noticed that there were sections which were, it did not come in the sufficiently large numbers, various reasons, personal, social, but not legal, not constitutional. Therefore, the representation was not as much as their population or the population would expect. That is why there are special dispensation for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. And then I said also that if the state government, because the subject of panchayats and local bodies is a subject which is deliberated in the state level, not in the national level. It is within the competence of state legislature, and therefore they can also give to the other backward classes and to women. This is what was wait for a while. Now what is it? This giving to unrepresented sections will mean. That means you are moving to a governance which is sensitive to all sections. So what would be inclusive governance? That you have all sections represented and all sections' needs are to be understood and addressed. And what would be gender-sensitive governance? I believe that when we are talking of gender-sensitive governance, we will talk in terms of inclusion and participation of both gender, men and women. And since men are always represented, women are not, ultimately becomes that inclusion of women in governance. Inclusion and participation. Inclusion is different from participation because inclusion means you have included, but unless they are able to effectively participate, our purpose is only half served. Then the governance should be sensitive to the gender needs and concerns. It should not only talk of foreign investment or export, import, economic policies, but should also be sensitive to what are the needs of these sections. That would be gender-sensitive governance, and in that it would mean that everything, whether it's a policy or program or laws or instructions, they should be seen through a gender lens, which means that is it addressing the issues of gender? Is it providing for them? It should be seen that it does not have anything which is contrary to the gender interests. Because if you don't scrutinize, quite often it may have different effect. If you see the history, you'll find that sometimes the technology may appear very good for improving production, but it may also be displacing a large number of people, and particularly one gender. So which means that if you have examining a technology, you have to see it from this gender point, that it should not replace large sections of a particular group. And if it is inevitable that if technology is very, very valuable, then you must simultaneously provide how to take care of the interests of those who are being displaced. I mean, history is full of technologies which have displaced women particularly. So you must provide, so the gender-sensitive governance would mean that you must provide that women do not get left out, do not get displaced. In fact, they should be moving up the ladder, and instead of doing for instance, a manual work, just a unskilled work, they should come to semi-skilled work and so on and so forth. So if a policy or program or a technology is looked at that way, that I would believe is a question of gender-sensitive governance. Next, yeah. Now, when we did this decentralization, it was also important as to what was to be done by them. And if in our constitution, in fact, we have a list of subjects which are within the competence of government, national legislature and government. There are subjects which are that are called the union list. It's a schedule in the constitution which gives the list of those subjects which are to be with the competence of the national government or national parliament. There is a state list which is concerning the within the competence of the state legislature, the state executive. There is a third list which is called a concurrent list, in which both national and state legislature can legislate and take action. But in case two of them are there, then what is decided at the national level will prevail over the other. So that is how our whole competence of legislature, the subjects with them, and the legislation and the policies are to be addressed. That if you go into those lists, most of the subjects which are a social sector, which affect the daily lives of people, are by and large in the decentralized sector, that is the state governments, the health, education, social sector. These are subjects by and large which are provided at either the state list or the concurrent list. Other major subjects like railways or civil aviation or defense, these are the type of subjects which are provided at the national level. This, in fact, in a way, includes the point of subsidiarity, which is really has been the basis of decentralization, where you look at the national level, what cannot be done at the other levels, and secondly, what is so important that it has to be a major issue throughout the country. So those subjects are at the national level, others are at the state level. Now, when this decentralization took place after 73rd Constitutional Amendment in 1992, then it has a list of subjects, which is Schedule 11 of the Constitution, which provides what are the subjects which may be devolved on the parliament and the rural local bodies, mean the panchayats, and that has to be done by the states, because after the constitutional amendment at the national level, the state panchayat laws had to provide for as to what would be done according to that, and they made the panchayat laws in conformity with this constitution. It also gives the work of planning for economic development and social justice, and also implementation of schemes which are interested to them by and large in this sector. So anything which is health, school education, social welfare, agriculture, all these things, rural development, these are by and large to be addressed by the panchayats, and states have been exhorted by the Government of India to give more and more of this work and funds and functions to the panchayats. Now, coming back to our focus on women, and then we see as I said earlier, gender responsive governance will also mean that both gender, and as I said earlier, that since women were not earlier represented for various reasons, some of them they did not contest election to that extent, and so on and so forth, that they should be, first of all, coming to the bodies. They should be inside those bodies, the panchayats. Panchayats in India have a history. The panchayat laws go back to 1920s in the British times. But those laws did not even use the word women. And that was a discourse at that time, and no one thought that you had to look at women and their inclusion whether in the panchayats or any part of government. That was not, in fact, a subject of discourse at all. I mean, a lot of things were just this thing that at the most the British thought that, okay, let Indians as such be in the bodies. Now, this analysis of Indians as to which sections of Indians, whether SC, ST or women and all, was not a discourse. Therefore, they did not mention women at all. Despite the fact that, in fact, in our constitution, there is an article which says that a state shall organize panchayats and give them such powers and authority as will be necessary for them to be able to work as institutions of self-governance. So the states had panchayat laws, states had organized panchayats, but they had a checkered history. Sometimes elections took place, sometimes they were superseded, so they were in the administrators, so on and so forth. There was a little unevenness about panchayats in India, across the states. So they had up and down. Sometimes panchayats were very much there. Sometimes they had supersession and dissolution, and then they were started again with election. So when the 1992 this constitutional amendment took place, it had a very major 4 or 5 things. One was that it became mandatory for all the states that panchayats will be there in every all local area. There could be no area which would be left out and say no panchayats there. Secondly, the elections will take place regularly every 5 years. So you could not keep them superseded or dissolved and put under administrators, bureaucrats heading them and so on and so forth. That would not be there. Thirdly, it included inclusive governance and beginnings of gender responsive governance, because it provided for reservation for women in panchayats at all the states. Now, if we go back before that, think that earlier attempt to look at inclusion of women in panchayats, we had in 1957 we had a committee which looked into the whole issue of panchayats strengthening. That was called the Balwantrao Mehta Committee Report 1957, which among other things said that there should be 3-tier panchayat structure in the country, but also said that 2 women should be co-opted. 2. Now what will 2 women do in the whole body? They'll just sit and keep quiet. So we, those who have looked at issues of women, I'm one of them, we felt it was a tokenism. 1 or 2 women can't really be very effective in the midst of others who are more vocal, who are more aggressive, more assertive. So it was really a token, this thing of 2 women that to be co-opted. Now there are people who are elected. They come with a certain powers, authority and mandate. Those who are co-opted by those who have been, for instance, suppose there's 100 persons who have been elected. If they co-opt 2 persons, either men or women, the co-opted people will look up to those that they have co-opted them and not the electorate as such. So in effect they become less assertive in their functioning. And they go with the majority, and so the co-option is really bringing them a tokenism. So there were only 2 women, and it was said that women who were working for women's welfare or associated with them are the ones who should be brought in there. Then in 1978, another committee which is called Ashok Mehta Committee Report, that looked at the panchayat structure, and they said yes, there will be 2 women. But then they said those women who should be nominated or co-opted. The co-opted means you nominate by the group who's there already. Who are those who had contested election but did not get elected? So from out of them, again they stuck to 2 only. Now, what happened in the 73rd Amendment? They said it looked at the issue. Can I have a glass for the water? Yeah. So what the 73rd Amendment did, it mandated a reservation for women. That every panchayat at all the levels, village, district and intermediate, that means the block or the taluk, which is administrative structure, within the village and the district, every panchayat will have a reservation for women. Initially when this constitutional amendment process started, in 1989, the proposal was that there should be not less than 30% women. But by the time the 73rd Amendment was finalized and passed in 1992, it was finally 33%. But that means not less than 1/3 will be the reservation for women. So every panchayat will have not less than 1/3 women members. And every panchayat will also have, panchayats together will at least 1/3 of the panchayats will be headed by women. There will be sarpanch or pradhan, which is the chairperson, will be women. So it brought in women in very large numbers. and that also from the sections who had never entered governance. It was never thought that women will. This is politics. I mean, panchayats are basically political institutions, though at the local level, decentralized governance. But so for the first time, a very large number of women came to governance. 1/3, and about 1 million women entered panchayat through elections. Through election, not through nominations by a party or government or executive body, but by election. So they were members, and they were also chairpersons of the village panchayats, block or taluka panchayat at the intermediate level, and the district panchayat. This is the administrative body below the state level, all the states and the union territories of the country. So this is what brought in women as far as the panchayats are concerned. As I said earlier, that gender responsive governance will have the first point will be about their being in the body. So what the election did, what this law and the subsequent elections did, it brought women in the panchayats. But what it then was, it made their presence. So women were present in the panchayats. But that did not necessarily mean that they were all able to participate in panchayats. So participation is much more important than just being present. So you are elected, but they have to effectively, they have to participate, and they have to participate effectively. That is where our objective is when we talk of gender responsive government. In this, women's movement played an important role, because they had fought for this whole issue that women should be in the panchayats. And they did not start with the parliament level. Parliament came later on, but it started with the panchayats and the municipal bodies, mainly panchayats. Because India is so far, I hope by 2020 or 30 it may not be the same, it may become 50-50, but as of now, majority of India lives in the rural areas. So they fought for bringing women in the panchayats, bringing women elected and not nominated. So this amendment brought women to the panchayats. They became members of the panchayats, elected every 5 years. Necessarily they had to come. And what was seen was that women were able to come. I remember that I was secretary of the Ministry of Rural Development when we finally brought this 73rd Amendment in force. Yeah. Why did this question came? Because, as I said earlier, despite the law being guaranteeing equality, guaranteeing universal franchise without any restriction of property or anything else, women were really not there in the numbers, whether in the panchayats or in the municipalities or in the national government. So this is the first attempt which was made after the Committee on the Status of Women in India also brought out that women were so little in numbers in the political district that they were really being left out in a way. So they came, at least 1 million women entered panchayats. Now, how was this done? Reservation. It is important to know as to how the reservation means. Reservation, the way it has been provided in our constitution amendment is that that 1/3 of the seats are put in that there only women can contest election. But the electorate is the same. They are elected by everyone like other seats, but the candidates can be only women. And but the second part of this is that this reservation is not that this panchayat is reserved forever for women, or that this district panchayat is reserved ever for women, or this chairperson post. These are rotated. This says that if this year, this election, say in 2012, if in a state the election is taking place by seat A, B, C, D are being reserved for women, next time they'll be rotated, some other panchayats will be the one which will have women. So one of the issue has been that since every 5 years you change them, there is in a democracy there is no way for women to be able to show to the electorate, or to the electorate to show that the woman has worked well or the man has worked well. The seat changes, so she can't contest. Woman can't contest, someone else contests. So one issue has been as to this rotation of reservation has to some extent limited the effectiveness of this provision of reservations. And there's an issue going on that instead of 5 years, let the rotation be after two terms, then 5 years, 2 terms, or 3 terms, so on and so forth. In fact, in Tamil Nadu, interestingly, the women village panchayat chiefs, they represented, and the chief minister provided for rotation after 2 elections instead of 1. So that was the one first effectiveness women showed, that they were able to get this, that yes, let them contest one more election and show to that they have worked well, people have wanted them again or not wanted them again and all that. But now this issue has been seriously discussed as to what should be the rotation of reservations. The second issues has been what should be. Yeah, okay. Now, what should be the percentage of reservation? Even when the reservation was brought, the question was, why 1/3? Because women were not 1/3 population, they were almost half. So if you want to see that women were able to come and have gender responsive governance, the first part of it, of entry and participation, there should be 50%. In fact, the minister, the rural development, when he presented the draft of the constitutional amendment in the parliament, when he spoke about it, he says that we have made a beginning. We have made a beginning, but we hope that women will be there much larger than that. Now, the constitutional amendment and the laws all said not less than 1/3. It has not said only 1/3, but when you have reservations or any of this thing, which really is which is sharing of power, whether with other men or whether between men and women, within the family, outside, these are issues which take long time before they finally get accepted completely. So it remained not less than 1/3. It remained 1/3. But though it could have been even more, any state could have done more without any further contribution, because it only says they should not be less than that. But for 2 decades, they remain only 1/3 everywhere. But at the same time, for the other backward classes, though it was optional for the states to provide reservation, that almost all the states have 2 provided for them. That shows at that stage how much was the political perception of political power of the group of women of OBC. So they provided for OBC, other backward classes, right at the beginning, most of the states, though it was optional. But women remained 1/3 till 2002, when they started look at this issue, and now a number of states have made it 50% reservation for women. Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, a number of other states along with them have already gone for 50% seats for women. Seats as well as chairperson's posts. So women have to be in the panchayats at all levels, and also urban local bodies, 50% by law. And there is a constitutional amendment which that had been moved at the national level. It has gone up to the Parliament Standing Committee, cleared and all that. So a very short while that will go through, and universally across the country there will be 50% reservation for women in the members as well as chairpersons. Why I keep on saying about the chairpersons, in the whole structure of panchayats, though there are members, but the system provides a very centrality to the position of the Sarpanch or Pradhan, it is called in different states, which is a chairperson, the president of the panchayats, who does a combination of executive and other functions. So he really becomes the mover and shaker in the sense that calling the meetings, putting things to them, be consulting them, discussing them, and take everyone along. If the Sarpanch becomes dictatorial, it becomes very difficult. So it is very important that you have women in that position so that they bring in this whole issue of participation, teamwork, discussing and consulting everyone before proceeding further. So this becomes an important part of the inclusive governance. What is the second part of inclusive governance next? Is what are the subjects which should go to the panchayats, and they have so that women can look at those issues, and they are this social sector subjects, particularly rural development programs, health programs, education programs. The proposal is that all these should be implemented by the panchayats and should not be left only to the district level bureaucracy or the sub-district level bureaucracy. But the problem there comes is that how can women participate? There is how women are able to participate effectively in the panchayats or in governance depends on a lot of factors, cultural and social this context, what is the role of their family in the family and the public life, patriarchy, the male-dominated society, and restrictions on their mobility, family responsibilities, and so on and so forth. So therefore, a lot of effort has been gone on from the government as well as civil society groups towards enabling women to be effective participants in local governance. And it is in this context that you see the film which I started with as to what is possible when women have been able to take training to be able to effectively participate. If you recollect, the film brought out women's voices in a number of issues. All these women particularly, they are from the tribal groups, they are from the scheduled caste, they're really women absolutely at the grassroots level. All those 5 women who had given their experience, they brought out a lot of issues. If you recollect, they brought out the constraints, they brought out the resistance, they brought out how people what people were saying, and they also brought out as to how they have effectively worked in that context and what they have wanted to do. And they have done, if you see from their voices, what I would call gender-sensitive governance. They have focused on schools. Children should, as one woman said, I want all children to go to school. Quite often men doesn't think that. I mean, there's maybe less emphasis. Woman looks at the child's education, child's health, nutrition. She focuses on, I mean, this has come out in the studies in panchayats and women's work, that they have focused on these much more than their male counterparts have done. She doesn't think of the trade and commerce, she thinks of the food, health, education, children's nutrition, and so on and so forth. So what these women have shown, that they have said that this is what she had wanted to do and she had done it. They also showed the resistance and the comments as to what she could do and not do. In fact, this is an issue in which I like to take a little more. When this election took place after the 73rd Amendment, there was tremendous interest in what was happening to panchayats and what was happening to women in panchayats. Skepticism. What will these women do? They're illiterate. They have never been in politics. They've never been in governance. What will they do? There's skepticism. And I had done a study. In 3 states, I had interviewed more than 1,200 people, and then panchayat women and those others in the community. And I challenged 4 myths which had been created by people about women. They said, where are the, when this amendment took place, they said, where are so many women to contest? They never been in politics. They now don't contest election, whether in parliament or state legislature or in the panchayats. Where are so many women? And I remember when the minister said, our people are saying, what have you done? Women, where are the women to contest election? I said, don't worry, women will come. Women will. So there were tremendous response from women, and there was nothing like a situation where seats remained vacant because women did not contest election. So they broke the first myth about women not being interested in the panchayats. Second thing, they said only women who were well off and they related to some powerful politician will come. If you are following anything in India in the political developments, and whenever the subject of reservation for women in the parliament comes, which I have to come to later, they always say, which women will come? Only powerful politicians, relations, etc. will come, and so on and so forth. But these women proved this is not so. My study showed that more than 50% women had nothing to do with any politician. Then no one in the family has ever been in politics. So they broke this myth. And another most important myth, which unfortunately goes to coming the way again and again, is that they are passive. They don't take it. Their family members usurp the powers and they do the work. What they call proxies. I don't know whether you say. These are proxies, they are only namesake members, and their husband and male relatives who run the panchayats on their behalf. And my study showed that was not true. So, this was a patriarchal response to an entry of such a large number of women taking positions otherwise taken only by men. Patriarchal resistance to women's entry. And I say that this whole myth of saying that women can't work and women are not there, they are passive, is a patriarchal expression, believing that men will be able to work, women will not be able to work. So I call it a public patriarchy, that okay, since the government, parliament has passed the law, you have no option, so we'll bring the panchayat, but we'll never permit them to work. We'll at least we'll see that someone else works for them and they don't work. I call it as a public patriarchy, that don't say no to the election, let them come elected, but don't permit them to work. So that is a challenge. Unfortunately, a lot of people who wrote about women in panchayats after their entry went on saying that their husbands do the work, which was not true in large number of cases, because what was happening when they entered, the husband came around. That does not mean husband did their work. Quite often the husband was supporting this. Supporting means that he is taking away the part. So in fact this is a part of patriarchy which we have to keep in mind, that if there is if you see the discourse, if a man in a certain position and his wife tries to interfere, which I quite often have the case, that people don't say he's proxy, they say she is very dominating. They never say he's a proxy. But if a woman is there and the husband tries to do something, they'll say she's a proxy. The discourse becomes different when you're talking of women as compared to men. So this is a context in which this whole thing about saying that women are not participating, as a man is participating, is brought in. And in this context that we brought the whole issue of capacity building of women who were elected. Government took a program, civil society groups took the challenges, and move up. Secondly, they have shown the performance. They mentioned how they did the work, how they did that you sent children to school, how they did the work of, how they participated going to every program. They were meeting all the questions in their voices, meeting all the concern as to how she goes to all the meetings. What was being said is women don't go to meetings, men, which is not correct. So she brought out how they go to the meetings, they participate in the meetings, how they decide about the issues, and how they have a voice of what is the performance. They include the performance, what they did. And they also indicated how they address women's practical and strategic needs. That is part of the gender-sensitive governance. Practical needs means the whole question of water supply, sanitation, health, school education, nutrition, which are really very much part of the women's practical needs. But more than that, there is a women's strategic need as to how women should be empowered women so that they can effectively participate and work in governance. That's part of gender responsive governance. And the film integrates in their own voices. It's not our voices. We made that film, we interviewed them, and we brought it before you. Their voices indicated how they are empowered women resisting all these questions and criticisms and working as effective panchayat leaders in their own right. And how they have aspirations, how they are participating, how they are looking at subjects. And that film, in my view, advertises to what has come out as a gender-sensitive governance in panchayats, as women have expressed in their own voices. Thank you. I think I'll leave it at that for questions. Thank you.